$4.59. I guess I can't say. Hey, Mike.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the board meeting. Commissioner Stewart, would you lead us to the invocation and the pledge?
Sure. Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, again, we come to you tonight. We humble our hearts, Lord, and we thank you that we're able to come here tonight, God, and assemble like this with the freedom to do so. Lord, we ask that you just bless us here tonight and give us wisdom as we conduct the business of the county. Lord, bless our nation, bless our county. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the June 3rd Board of County Commissioners. We'll have numerous times you can speak to the board tonight. If you just fill out a card and give it to Miss Patty, you can speak at Citizens to be Heard or on any agenda item as it comes forward. Need approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, staff is recommending that we table tab 11 concerning the airport authority until after the special election where you will have a new Florida House representative. That will give us an opportunity to get with whomever is elected and ensure that there would be sufficient support to introduce such a bill before we bring it back to you.
Modify my motion to reflect that change.
I'll second. That means we're not going to be talking about the airport for anybody that's here
Not
for that.
tonight.
Not tonight. I hate it, but we're not going to be talking about the airport.
Okay.
You can always stay. You don't have to leave. I wouldn't stay.
Motion to approve?
Nothing pulled off consent, right?
Nothing pulled off consent. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Citizens to be heard. Mr. Peak.
I'm Norman Peak with the VFW 4538, Wakulla County. I'd like to bring up the VSO again. I've done some checking and thinking and talked to some of the commissioners here and there, and I think would be acceptable with a VFW for a part-time VSO. And then if we see that part-time won't work, because there's a lot of folks that can't afford to drive to Tallahassee, and whether that guy likes us or not, he's not going to be as enthused about filling out a VFW or paperwork for a Wakulla veteran as he is for a Leon veteran, due to the fact he's paid by Leon. And but I think we do deserve a VSO, and I know there's a lot of people that I've talked to over the last 30-40 years that have benefited from our local VSO. I, for one, I think he helped that young man right there, and he's helped a lot of other ones. There's one lady that he helped. I know her husband had passed and everything, and she fought the VA for years to get benefits for her deceased husband that he was due, and they wouldn't give her, and finally they did. But I sure would like to see us at least get, once a month ain't gonna cut the mustard, once a week won't cut the mustard, because you don't know when they're gonna be there. Maybe some people can't be there on the days he is, but I feel if we get a 20-hour-a-week guy, he'd be there 4 or 5 days, and if necessary he could alter work 2 evenings, 2 mornings, 1 evening, and that way he catch the morning guys and the evening guys, and that would I don't think the VFW would fight or make a lot of fuss about if we got one part-time. Otherwise, from what they have said to me, why? Since last meeting. And by the way, the branch is dry out there. If y'all gonna fix that Molly branch thing, now's a good time. I'd appreciate it if y'all would get me before the hurricane season gets here and washes me away again like it did about 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm sure my neighbor across the street didn't want all my firewood on his land, and it tore his fence down.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker.
Thank you.
Fill out a card if you like. Bill Catalina.
I got some envelopes here that don't, that I would like to hand out. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
It'll explain a lot of what's going on out there, without me having to go into a long,
Thanks, sir.
about everything. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Good, how are you?
Thank you, sir.
I was gonna speak I'd like to speak from a prepared statement because,
You need to get to the microphone so we can hear you.
okay, I'd like to speak from a prepared statement, but this time I'm not going to, because what I gotta say is pretty simple. My friend, this concerns the airport, but it's a separate issue. My question, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions or not, but is Steve Fultz still the airport manager?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Steve, all the pilots have vacated the hangar. The hangar's at the airport because Steve has taken over. Nobody likes him, long story short. My friend was driving his truck to pick up his last load of supplies at his hangar. Steve, he's famous for this. Let me put this back a little bit. He's famous for this. Steve spots him, parks his car over here, Steve does. Comes up here and starts taking video and pictures of him. As Randy is driving down here, his name is Randall Dick. And so Randall, oh boy, what did I do? I left it over there. All right. Well, hang on. Can I hang on just a second?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that this is a matter that's still under investigation. It's an active investigation by the Sheriff's Department. I'm not sure how much of this we need to hear, but...
Oh,
or should
well, it
we?
don't matter to me, because from what I can tell, they're not going to do anything about it anyway. But anyway, Randy tries to avoid him, and he goes around the hangar, parks in here, and Steve Steve walks up into here and starts and gets mad at Randy because he gets mad at Randy. Okay, he doesn't like anybody ignoring him. Starts beating on his truck hard enough to knock dents in the hood. Now, Steve then, instead of being happy with that, as most people would, he comes around to Randy's door, slams it open so hard it slams him back in the shoulder, and I was happy for that door. And he pulls Randy out of the truck by his leg. Randy has had 2 heart bypass operations in the last 3 years, and he pulls him out, and I'm cutting a lot of corners here to get it down to the point. But he pulls him out of the car, drags him a few feet away, and gets on top of him, strangles him. I got ahead of myself. He jumps on him, straddles him, jumps on his stomach, and starts strangling him. And here's a picture of his wounds from the strangle. Right there, you can see the marks of the strangulation. And we've had him at the hospital in the emergency room. You can see it through here, through here, through here, through here. He got him by the jugular and the carotid artery, and Randy went unconscious. Steve left him for dead on the hot asphalt at the hangars. So,
Thank you, Mr. Catalina.
and I don't know what it's going to take for y'all to get rid of this guy, but he causes trouble everywhere he goes. And if that don't do it, I don't know.
Brian Cherry?
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm Brian Cherry with Pinpoint Results. I'm a consultant for Capital Asphalt, here to speak agenda item number 9.
You want to speak to the item, or this is citizens to be heard?
This was supposed to speak to agenda item number 9.
Okay.
You wait till item number 9
Why don't you wait
comes
till
up.
number 9?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This was, Mr. Mitchell, you were number 9 also?
I'm on the same
Okay. Beverly Council.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me come up here and say a few words. I'm here for our veterans, and I'd like to see how many veterans we have here tonight.
Buddy?
Thank y'all very much for your service. I appreciate it. Did y'all have a good Memorial Day?
Hot.
It was, wasn't it? I heard about our officer, Wakulla County officer, and my father, Owen Council, was in World War II. He was a pathfinder, and you don't hear much about pathfinders. They're the ones that jump first. He jumped just after midnight, 400 feet above in the dark, and he was a radio operator. And he and the men that jumped with him, they bombed the bridges, destroyed the bridges, and radio contact with the incoming paratroopers. And their battle started just after midnight on D-Day. And my father went on and fought through the war. My older sister was born while he was on his way over to fight in the war. He was eventually wounded and became a prisoner of war. Okay, I just said that to give you an idea. Anyway, my father came home, Owen Council, 100% disabled. And I know for a fact that he depended on our local veteran officer to help him. Because when I got old enough, I was there to help him. I know a lot of y'all have seen me with my daddy here around about Wakulla County. I loved my daddy with all my heart. I lived the war. I'm not a veteran, but I felt like a veteran because I lived it. I lived it through my daddy. I lived it through my grandparents and my uncles and my aunts and other families here in Wakulla County. And I saw my daddy's war wounds. I lived with him. I took him to the doctor to help him to be treated for them. My daddy loved this nation. That's the reason he volunteered to fight for this nation, as all the other veterans. But I was just upset when I heard that our local Wakulla County does not have a veterans officer. And I do know my daddy depended on this officer very, very much. You know him.
I need you to bring it to a close.
Okay, but anyway, if you care for our veterans, you care about your freedom, then you'll help our local veterans. Don't send them to Tallahassee. My daddy wasn't able to go. If you love this country, don't be a disappointment to our veterans, Wakulla County.
Thank you. That's the last citizen to be heard.
Move consent.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Before we do that, if I may, I noticed that Buddy come in. I wanted to just ask a question about tab 5, if we can. I just want to, I'm not sure I understand, Buddy. Can you tell us what you know that we need to do as far as this special election or special?
Well, I can tell you the information I've received. I know I respect Miss Heather there and her role as the county attorney. The only thing I have issues with is there's nothing in election law that requires you to have a special election for this, but the charter does, and I understand that. My only question is, the courts have ruled. We don't have a choice. We've got to move forward with the court's order. You all in agreement with that? No? Okay. But the court order has to be followed, and it's been deemed unconstitutional There's nobody in this world that wants to keep nonpartisan election as much as I do. It makes things a lot easier. But with this new ruling, it's going to have to come 2020. All of our candidates, constitutional officers that is, will have to be a partisan election. How we go about doing that, if a special election is what you deem is the way to go, my only problem there is it's going to make us busy. The county commission office is going to be busy. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff that when we go to the citizens
It's
for
not
an
a special election.
Pardon?
It's not set up to be a special election.
It's part of the primary.
Presidential preference.
Well, even in the primary. But the question I have, that's in March 17th. That's fine and dandy. We can do it then. But we need to get on board now and decide, I'm going to tell you the way that I'm going to go forward. And then we're going to handle it as partisan elections going forward. I don't have an option.
Buddy, the presidential preference, correct me if I'm wrong, but if Trump doesn't have a opponent,
It's going to be one ballot, probably.
okay, so the Republicans aren't going to go to a primary
But if we,
presidential preference.
but if we do a special,
It'll be advertised. This will be advertised. It'll be on that
You know what I
ballot.
mean.
then everybody would get a ballot. I'd have to create 2 different ballot styles, and that's not a big issue. We just create one
Turnout
for
on the
the,
Republican side and high turnout on Democrat.
I'll be 0 on the Republican side.
Yeah.
But, not that that matters, but
Well, it's still, you're going to have a small turnout either way, so it's a small part of the population is going to make this decision in March, and
but that's just the way it needs to be.
My understanding, buddy, is it's fine for you to, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, it's fine for you to proceed like that, if that's what you've been told by your folks that you need to do and have the election as a partisan election, that's fine. We got to clear up our issues.
right, and that's the thing.
We'll do that
I
in
spoke with some people today. I spoke with Orange County this morning. They're lucky. They had never put it in their charter, so they don't have to do anything to remove it. It was passed, but they never applied it to the charter because a lawsuit was filed right when it happened by 3 of their constitutional officers because they didn't want it to go nonpartisan, but the citizens had voted nonpartisan. And I know that the charter says we have to take everything that happens in the charter to the people. And we'll do that on the primary, presidential primary. But I have one question. We put it on there and it's voted, and they all vote no.
I asked that question too.
it's a really good question.
Where are we at? We're no different than we were to start with,
No, I mean, there is a way to get this removed from the charter. This is the first step. If for whatever reason the referendum does not pass and it remains in the charter, then we actually need to look at getting a legal declaration specifically on Wakulla County's charter provision. Because while it's well and good to talk to the Orange County charter and all that, that case only dealt with the Orange County charter.
I understand that, Ms. Heather.
And
Yeah.
so we would look at legal options to get the circuit judge to declare this provision invalid and proceed that way. But I don't think there's any reason to expend legal fees litigating that issue, even if it's an uncontested issue, which I would expect it would be, but you're still going to have legal expenses if we can get it removed this way.
Okay.
There you
Yep,
go.
because then it's going to be back into the field of you guys making a decision, I guess, to strike it null and void. But
Well, they can't strike it null
can't
and
strike
void.
it.
That's
well, I'm
something
talking
they
about the
can
people, whatever, take it to court. But I just want you guys to know going forward, it's to be expected that those offices the candidates will be informed that it's a partisan race now, just by the deem of the Supreme Court,
Buddy, that's what we needed from you, so that they can understand. Then it's up to us to clean it up as to when we clean
Exactly,
it up.
and there's
Or
no...
clean the charter.
Yeah,
Even at
cleaning
the
it
time-
up is not going to be a big
That's
deal.
right.
Even at the time of qualifying, right, buddy?
Yes,
Even at qualifying.
yes, even county,
Before the referendum goes on the ballot, you're gonna do partisan.
yes. Because at this point, we don't have no choice,
I wanted to get clarification.
Yeah, we just get clarification, that's it. We'll be partisan, and I want to question now. Is this something that I need to send a letter out to everybody? Or is the county going to send a letter out to everybody?
Everybody watches the show, buddy.
Especially when they know you're coming.
less people will watch if I'm
Newspaper,
coming.
I'm sure, will write a
Well,
little
buddy, you're going to be in
article
touch
about
with
it.
each candidate as they come to file. That's the
Put the
time.
word out
That's
that
the time. That's the time to do that.
I'm going to put it on the website that going forward, 2020 candidates will be in the constitutional area, will be partisan races.
That's you're the election supervisor. so
Wakulla
you-
News
you
is
take
here,
off.
buddy. If there's a slow news week, I'm sure they'll run a story on it.
That young lady right there. That's right. You get that?
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman, we've talked around this issue, but I don't know, there's probably people at home kind of scratching their head. They don't know exactly what we're talking about. Maybe if we could get the attorney to give us a high-level overview so people know what the core issue is.
Okay, do we want to, I'm just from a procedural, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve consent. Do you want me to do that under county attorney time, or do you want to do it?
Let's do it under county attorney time.
Okay.
Motion stands.
So stay tuned for an explanation at the end of the meeting.
It's just,
All approve, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Nothing was pulled for discussion, general business.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This agenda item has Capital Asphalt has filed a procurement challenge pertaining to the Smith Creek Road widening, ITB 2019-05, pursuant to Section 2.255, Wakulla County Code of Ordinances. The board must be presented with this unresolved challenge for final decision.
Move option 1.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, 1 second. Oh, I need to.
That motion is do not approve Capital Asphalt's procurement challenge.
Okay, second.
I have some citizens to be heard. Mr. Brian Cherry.
Up here at the right time now, so sorry about that.
Perfect.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak. Agenda item number 9, Brian Cherry with Pinpoint Results, consultant, not an attorney. Worked with Mark for a number of years, went to high school together, good friends. Here to talk about Capital Asphalt was a low bidder on this ITB. And we, really, there are two main issues we have with the handling of this particular procurement. The first being, just put it out there, we had one opportunity as the low bidder to go with the third party here, Dewberry, to discuss the cost overage, which was roughly, I think, about $500,000. We got pretty close to where the bottom dollar is for this project without reducing a single lane mile to the project. So the county's going to get the same number of lane miles for this project that they intended to get from the get-go. Unfortunately, we were told we'd have a second go-around of negotiations with the county to get that within project budget. That never happened before the rejection of all bids. So we're here today to ask that you'll consider option number 2, which would let Capital Asphalt, who is the low bidder on this ITB, an opportunity to get back and discuss with the county to get within the budget for this particular project. Again, not an attorney, but just looking here at Wakulla County's procurement ordinance, and I'll read exactly from what it says, and I think this is really what gives me the most angst about this particular bid is the bid tabulation. The full documents were released. Why is that important? In Capital Asphalt, they were the low bidder, so their unit prices, it's out there on the street. Wakulla County's own ordinance says that information is not to be released unless, it's supposed to be held back just in case there is a reprocurement. And the reason for that is because you've completely done away with the competitive reprocurement in the future. And that's what we'll have the biggest issue with. I know Mark is here today. He's going to talk a little bit in detail about that. I'm happy to answer any questions. But you've thrown it. Our prices have been out there on the street. The county even responded and said, ideally, we would not have done that. Meaning, ideally, we would not have violated our own procurement ordinance, Wakulla County procurement ordinance. We've yet to have a response back as to that violation other than that particular item. With that, I'll answer any questions. We'd appreciate your consideration to get back to the table as the low bidder especially all things considered with the uniqueness that our unit prices are out there on the street.
Mr. Chair, you said you're going to read the ordinance, but then you didn't read the ordinance.
I will do that.
And does it say that it's not to be held back, or it said it's exempt from public record law?
It says, according to Wakulla County Procurement Ordinance number 215-2, section 5.32, opening responses B, a recording of all responses received shall be available for public inspection unless the procurement responses result in a reprocurement.
Okay, thank you.
And Heather's, the 30-day thing, after 30 days, all that goes out the window, right? They're public then? Is that correct?
What the state statute and what the county ordinance says. I mean, the county ordinance just defers to the state statute. It says pursuant to current state law, responses to competitive procurements received by the county are exempt until such time as the county provides notice of an intended decision or until 30 days after opening, whichever occurs first.
Has it been over 30 days since the opening of the bids?
It has, but there are provisions. If they had not been released, they could have been held back if we had indicated an intent to rebid within that time period.
But that time period is long expired. So when he said, with all due respect, when he says they're on the streets, they would be on the streets anyway, right?
And keep in mind, exempt is not confidential. Exempt means that you can withhold them, but you don't have to.
And I guess the intent and what he's saying, and I agree with you on this, is if the project's going to be rebid, you obviously don't want,
I understand that.
during the
point,
time
certainly.
period, you don't want your competitor looking at your unit prices.
And
But once the 30 days pass, that's all out the window anyway, right?
And no one's arguing that point. That is not how procurements are typically processed, but it happened. It was not done by the county. It was done by their consulting engineer. And so I certainly understand that point, but I think the bottom line is that the county has the discretion to reject any and all bids. And you retain that discretion, and merely erroneous release of those bid tabs does not undermine the fact that you have that discretion to take the actions that you did. Additionally, the project, they talk about how, they were able to get it down and we were close. We weren't close. The project had been changed substantially. When it goes out to rebid, if it does, it's not going to be the same project. It's going to look very different, to the point where the bids that you got are not valid for the new project. And so, yes, the bid tabs were released. The bid tabs for everybody were released. But everyone has an opportunity to rebid if this project is put back on the street.
And the specific item that made the big difference, by the way, was, what was it called, the surface prep or something?
Prepared soil layer.
Prepared soil layer done along the side of the road, basically, I guess, just to make sure the grass is going to take good. And the best analogy I could give that's really simple, if I'm getting a price on a house and I go get bids from two different contractors and I say I want a pool too at the same time, and so you get with the low bidder and you say, well, I can't afford, how much deduct will you give for not building the pool? This guy says he'll take $10,000 off, and the other guy that was a little bit higher says he'll take $40,000 off if you don't build the pool. Now that person's the low bidder. That's pretty much what happened here.
If I may have 2 points, if I could respond to what I've heard here. First of all, when you negotiate with the low bidder and you talk to DOT, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. You look at state statutes, it's going to tell you the exact same thing. When you go to negotiation, it is not an opportunity to pick a new low bidder.
Nobody was doing that.
Nobody was doing that.
What we're hearing by taking out the scope of work. And now you're talking about someone now not being the low bidder because you're manipulating the unit prices at this point. That is not at all, I mean, in the letter that we received on May 8th it's in your packet today, you'll see the county point that out. And again, we're not here to point fingers today. We're here as a low bidder that says we were told we'd have another opportunity to negotiate with the county. We were not afforded that opportunity.
What was DOT's recommendation, Heather?
Let me, just 1 second, let me clear. Okay. I didn't talk to DOT, so he can.
Yeah.
Let me clarify, though, because I don't want that on the record. The only reason the county looked and started rerunning the bid tabs based upon the unit prices they received is because the process of trying to get a project that is $500,000 over budget and you start whacking pieces off of it, it starts to look real different. And it got so different that they reran to see, is our original bid even valid anymore? Are we even in the same ballpark? And it hadn't. All the bidders had changed ranks. That was not the county saying that they were going to go to another bidder. That was you let me finish. That was never going to happen. But it does illustrate the fact that the project has changed so much that your original bid rankings are not valid anymore.
And I have spoken with DOT, and they have said that initially they were asked, what would you do in this situation? They were unaware the bid tabs had been released at that point. I don't know if there's been subsequent conversations past that then they found out that the bid tabulations were released, but at least when I spoke to them, they were unaware of that information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mark Mitchell.
Mark Mitchell, President, Capital Asphalt. Sorry for my appearance. I played mechanic before I came up here. All I want to try and talk y'all into is letting us do business with the county. We were the successful low bidder. We were the ones who gave the county the best price for the project. In every instance or every situation where a county has a job that is over budget, the counties, or not just Wakulla County, but this happens in other counties, the counties negotiate with the low bidder to bring the project within budget. We met with the county's engineer, I did, sat down with them, and I did not come up with one single idea. They portrayed to me the changes they wanted to make. And I agreed with every single change they asked me to make. Every single reduction they asked me to make. I never once said, no, I don't want to do that. I made every single concession I could possibly make that they asked me to make. And at the end of the meeting, they said, the other way that we can reduce this to get it within scope, and we've done this before with other counties, is reduce the lane miles. What the county has is they have a grant from the DOT to do a job, and it's a certain amount of money. And unfortunately, the designers designed this job over, for more than what y'all got. And I know that we can build what the engineers want. You got to remember, y'all are talking about changing the job where it doesn't look different and all this. Their design engineers are the ones that made these changes, not Capital Asphalt. So they have redesigned the job. So if it goes for rebid, guess who's going to do that redesign? The same engineers. And they're going to redesign it to get it within budget the same way they told me to do it. Okay, and we were the low bidder that y'all initially put out there. I don't want to run out of time. I want to make sure I hit a couple of points on the competitive bid process. I understand what you're talking about. Very, very fine in the private world. Not so much in the public, dealing with DOT and whoever. Once we give them a price, you are opening up Pandora's box if you want to go and look at other unit prices and figure out, all right, if we take this out and put this in and take this out and put this in, guess who's the low bidder now? If you could imagine the next job y'all have, and I'm the second bidder, I'm dang sure going to look at every single item on there and figure out what can be taken out, whether it's, say, prepared soil layer. If I can take my prepared soil layer out and all of a sudden I'm the low bidder, I'm going to be standing right here wanting that job. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but it was suggested. But y'all, if you're trying to change things, and I understand that's not what they're doing, but that's what was in their letter that they were intending to do. And I know I'm running out of time, but
Our letter that we were intending.
Thank you.
I would rather have a better working relationship with the county. I have no idea what I have done to deserve the treatment that I've been getting when I come and work down here. I've done everything I can to give the county the best possible projects they can do. On recent projects, I've been over backwards and taken huge hits financially to put projects, finish projects that they want to finish the way they want to finish. I mean, I have a wife, my wife's from Wakulla County. She was the Teacher of the Year in Wakulla County 2 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
I appreciate your concern.
Any discussion?
Brandy?
Yes, I want to clarify a couple things. Mr. Cherry, I'm not sure who he spoke with at DOT, but I actually had a verbal conversation with Dustin Costells, who is our area program administrator, and I did make him aware 2 days after, as soon as I found out that those bid tabs were released, I did make DOT aware. But prior to that is when the county administrator had actually met with Jared Perdue from DOT and let him know what situation we were in and how far off. And his immediate recommendation to the county was, if this happened to DOT, we would reject and we would start over. We would get a new estimate, we'd review. And so we initially tried to go ahead and negotiate with Capital Asphalt because our engineer's estimate was off and we were not sure exactly where. We had them review it again to make sure, hey, why do we have a $1.4 million construction estimate and we got $2 million bids? So we were fact-finding and working through to go through the process and see what the issue was. Well, like Heather said, by the time we worked through that process and we started reducing pay items and things, we were at a totally different project. And some of the changes that our engineer proposed with Capital Asphalt, the county did not agree to. That was the engineer's shot across the bow. We hadn't seen them yet. So there are some other things. Capital Asphalt will get the opportunity to rebid just like all the other 3 bidders. That's the other point I want to make. The county needs to be fair to Capital Asphalt. We also need to be fair to the 3 other bidders. And at the end of the day, this was not fair to anybody. And that's what we're wanting to promote, is that fair and open competition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no animosity towards you guys whatsoever. I used to run the public works. I've said that 1,000 times, so I've been through this before. Again, no hard feelings. I'm sure you're excellent people. Don't take my motion to heart.
Couple comments.
Sure.
Can you tell us if any action has been taken as far as the engineer that released the bid tabs?
The engineer that released the bid tabs will not be doing any work for the Wakulla County. The engineer that worked for the engineering company.
Gotcha. Also, I dug into this deep, real deep, way deeper than I ever thought I wanted to before. I think if what was before us today was an attempt to change the scope and it affected the ranking, then I would have a problem. I'd have a serious problem with that because there's no mechanism for that in the procedure. And I know there was some language that kind of gave us some information about, alluded to what it would be, but that's not what we're being asked to decide. We're not being asked to put someone else in place or change the ranking. What we're being asked is very narrow, to say yes or no on this procurement challenge. And so, you know, there's a section in our code that addresses the procurement challenge, and it says to initiate a challenge, the vendor must file a notice of intent to challenge the procurement in writing with the procurement office within 72 hours of posting of the notice of intent to award. Now, we never got to the point of posting a notice of intent to award. So therefore, the way I see this, there's no mechanism to even entertain a challenge. Now, certainly it's here, we're entertaining it, but there's no mechanism for doing that because the cause for the effect didn't happen. We didn't do the notice of intent, so therefore the challenge is, the request for the challenge is not even valid according to our own procedure, in my opinion. I hate what's happened with the engineers, and I hate that muddied the waters up, but it sounds like we've dealt with that as best we can. And so I'll be voting with the motion.
And the motion on the table is option number 1, correct?
Option number 1, yeah. Mr. Stewart?
I just want to reiterate what Randy said. There's no animosity towards Mitchell, Capital Asphalt. I don't gather that from anybody I talk to in staff or anybody on this board. So you will, sir, you will have the same leverage you had before to put your bid in and be, you know, certainly be the winner again. But that's yet to be seen. So that's the way it works. So,
if I may make one comment before you consider, I pretty much see it writing on the wall, but all we are asking...
Come up to the counter.
All we're asking is for us to have the opportunity that we were told by Dewberry that we would have to bring y'all a job that you would take. Let us sit down with Dewberry one more time, present them with an option that the county might take. It's not like we're saying you got to award us this job.
Well,
I mean, that's
you're
not.
going to get an option to
But
come to
there,
the county.
but I think you would agree, the idea that our prices are on the street when they weren't supposed to be, obviously we beat that horse, you know, that's there. That's the reason we would like the county to consider giving us a second chance with the engineer, as has been done in, you know, just like I said, in many other cases with other counties. It's been more than one, hey, county, do you like this? No, okay, they sit down with the contractor again. This is what they didn't like. Can we bring them something they do like? That's all I'm asking, because we were the low bidder.
Okay.
Can we
Thank
vote?
We were the low bidder.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Number 10.
Number 10, on March 18th, 2019 board meeting, the BOCC had directed staff to bring back options for the BOCC to consider adopting an individual grinder pump maintenance program that will help county sewer customers pay for the maintenance of grinder pumps. So what we've done is, this program is just an outline program. We brought it to you to say, here's a program that could work for the county. It was a limited program based upon eligibility on the income level, and so therefore we're asking whether you want to move forward with this, scrap it, or what you want to do, because as far as we've done, just put it together.
Second.
Read option 2.
What's
Do not
option two?
approve staff to proceed with creating an individual grinder pump maintenance program. And I make that motion, I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I used to run the public works. One of the, if not the biggest nightmare we had was individual grinder pumps. You got liability issues going on somebody's property, you got people calling you at midnight to go onto their personal property, so. I mean, I think it was good to look at it, but trust me when I say, Mike, you remember when I had the board
I don't remember.
change the code saying that we do not maintain individual grinder pumps. That's my motion.
It is a second, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I'm probably the only one up here that supports the idea of developing such a program, but I'm going to say that I think this is a good way to maybe step into it and just see if it's worth doing, and it certainly would help those who are least able to afford fixing their grinder pump. I mean, there's some people out here who absolutely can't afford, if they had to pay a couple $1,000s to change a grinder pump, they'd probably have to go get a loan to do it.
And if you want to introduce a substitute motion, that'll override mine, and then I'll vote against it.
No, I'm just saying.
No offense, no offense.
You second, right?
I did.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just what we're talking about is just doing it for 40 or 50 customers, right, David?
That is correct.
And I understand that.
And they're going to pay into the system. It's not like they're getting a free-for-all. It's going to be, they pay $35 a month. Should their pump go out, they get a quality pump that'll last them for 5 years. And maybe they don't have to come, I mean, they're just going to keep piecemealing this thing until, you know, we try to help them. I just feel like there's some responsibility on the government's part, because back whenever we forced people to join on the
These are on Sop Choppy, right? Mostly what we're talking about?
We're talking about the whole system.
I know.
The whole county, but it's that the lower income.
People that's going to qualify for it are nothing against Sop Choppy.
I don't know. I don't know where that's going to be.
They're all over, but I mean, you can't say that.
They're in Silver Glen, they're in Sop Choppy, and I don't know if there's any other systems the county maintains. Tarpine has them.
And this is not a handout from the county.
I know.
They're paying for this.
I just don't like the liability of county employees going on private property, getting called out by citizens. I've been there, and it was a nightmare.
Okay.
Can we, you know, part of the thing, we can get a release before going on as part of this program. And this allows the, you know, individual that doesn't have the income to fork out this kind of cash, and it's not costing the county anything. So this seems like a reasonable proposal.
I understand that. We'd have to separate billing program up too, correct? Because we got to bill $35 a month. What happens when they stop paying it? What do you do then?
They drop out of the program.
Yeah, it's,
When
They
when you
can't
say not
be-
cost the county, how many departments do we have that are completely self-sustaining in the county? One, maybe, building department?
Building department?
we got a lot of enterprise funds, but
What did you just say?
Nanette,
No, Nanette, answer the question. What did you just say, David, about the can't drop out?
The program be set up just like we would add it to their sewer bill, and if they didn't pay, then we would treat that just like if they didn't pay the regular sewer bill.
So then they can't pay the money every month, and then this is causing bigger problems.
Then it's
Turn the
causing
water
bigger
off, correct?
problems.
They get
and
the water
the
shut
water off.
And then,
Yeah,
so,
that's right. It does. I mean, it adds, part of it says, wow, it's cheap, but it also adds $35 a month.
A month.
To some of these low-income folks' bill.
and
a
then
month.
we repair them every time they go out?
We repair them every time it goes out, so it's, like I say, like I told you guys, it's a tough call here.
it is a tough call because you want to help people, but to me,
It
it's
is,
just
it
not
is a
worth it.
complicated
You
issue.
got billing issues, you got,
Is there a mechanism to put an assessment on their taxes? Say if we did some hybrid form of this, and instead of having a county department, we let the private market do this, do the repairs, and then we somehow put an assessment on it. It's going to go against their taxes if they don't pay it. So it's not a matter of turning the water off, but it's going to go against their taxes. I don't know. I've never.
I wouldn't step my foot in that for nothing.
Yeah. Well, and there's a concern. Certainly there's need, but we can't make every decision based on need, because the same person that can't afford to fix the grinder punt can't afford to fix the roof if it gets blown off. That doesn't mean it now becomes a taxpayer's responsibility. So we gotta figure out where that line is drawn. Yeah.
My motion stands.
Motion's on the table. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
3-2, passes
Right.
3-2.
We ain't had 3-2 in a long time.
And I'm still happy.
Well, I just don't
I'm
like the
happy
idea of the
That's why there's 5 of us up
That's the
here
reason
instead
there's
of
5
one.
of you, that's right, that's right. Also, I'd like to thank staff for helping put that in the net,
Yeah.
and Brandon for putting that together, and Ned. All right,
Yeah, I was wondering why you took the microphone away.
I wouldn't touch this one.
The next item is for board direction on the matter of Fultz and Navarra versus Wakulla County, which is case number 2018 CA 96, Second Judicial Circuit. This is the case where the Mr. Fultz and Mr. Rivera challenged the county on forgoing, in their opinion, outside of the scope of the exemption for attorney-client executive sessions during a brief portion of one meeting last year, when their, not the most recent boat ramp permit challenge, but the original county's permit challenge where you were going to put into a concrete ramp was brought up. We recently received a negative decision from the circuit court, and so we are seeking direction from you all on whether you want us to file an appeal.
Move option 3.
Second.
So, could you explain these to the public so they understand what's going on?
Well, the options are whether we should appeal, move for rehearing, or negotiate attorney's fees, because although the court did not invalidate any of your decisions that were made, they did order attorney's fees in accordance with Florida
My
statute.
motion was do not appeal it, just pay the attorney's fees. It will be money ahead.
And I agree. I don't agree with the decision, but I think, and I'd love to fight it, but I think it would cost us more to fight it. And so in the interest of saving taxpayers' money, I think that's the best path forward.
So, any other comments? So we're going to pay the attorney fees for Mr. Alvera and
It's up to a certain amount. I haven't seen their bills. They were going to get those to me last week. I haven't received them yet, so hopefully once I get those, I need to be able to have an opportunity to go through them. But they have given me a sort of the maximum amount.
And your fees are covered in our regular program?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to approve? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
One more item, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on Commissioner Thomas's request. The issue that we were discussing that was on the consent agenda was regarding the nonpartisan charter amendment that was put in back in 2014 at the behest of the Charter Review Commission and then subsequently approved by the referendum of the voters. Orange County had a very similar charter amendment that they had proposed. It also passed. It was challenged by 3 of their constitutional officers because the constitutional officers did not want, constitutional officers being here, it is the tax collector, the property appraiser, the supervisor of elections, the clerk of court, and then all the 5 of you. In Orange County, it just applied to everyone except for the Board of County Commissioners. They had a separate one that applied to the county commissioners, so they weren't leaving themselves out. They just handled it separately. So the one was challenged, and the Florida Supreme Court recently found that nonpartisan elections by charter amendment for constitutional officers is preempted by the Florida Election Code. Court essentially said that the Florida Election Code in state law provides for nonpartisan elections for 2 types of offices, judges and school board members. Anyone else, it's not allowed. And so that leaves your charter provision in limbo. It is in the charter. It was not challenged. It has not been challenged, and it was not part of the Florida Supreme Court case. And that is why we brought an item to you all, and you heard from the Supervisor of Elections that he is going to respect the Florida Supreme Court's determination and conduct partisan elections here, while at the same time we're requesting that you all put a question to the voters to clean that up out of the charter so that there isn't any confusion going forward.
As I understood it, there was a decision 3 months previously where they upheld that?
There was a decision in January, and what that court, that composition of the Florida Supreme Court had heard the oral arguments and read all the briefs. They found that a charter amendment could make those offices nonpartisan, but that you had to adhere to the state statutory provisions for conducting the nonpartisan election. So that portion of their charter amendment was struck, but the main portion of it, making those offices nonpartisan, was not struck. So then we had 3 Supreme Court justices go off the court. 3 more justices came on, and then they just came out, they pulled back their mandate and completely switched their decision and found that the whole thing was preempted by the Florida Election Code. Little bit unprecedented. They did that with one other case as well.
Judges are lawyers, right?
Yeah.
Checking.
In Florida they are, not everywhere, but yeah, so that is probably what you're referring to.
Okay. Thank you.
Good,
So,
thank you.
Our elections in the future will be partisan elections.
So it sounds like that's going to happen regardless of if we clean up the charter, but we need to make the
Clean up
charter
the charter.
match what is in the voting booth.
Again, given the timing of the presidential preference, I think the Democratic Party really needs to get word out to the people that, this needs to.
Well, we'll get that out to everybody.
You know what I mean?
We'll get it out to
By
everybody.
far had the biggest turnout.
Well, and I haven't heard anything, but we could see something out of the legislature next year that changes the law that will make it legal. And session starts in January, so January to March. So the session won't be complete at the time of this potential election, but it'll be close to the end. So we'll know Well, no, I mean, it could,
It seems,
it
it's
could
it's a
happen.
home rule question.
It is.
And so I can't imagine why the legislature just let this go away, because it is a home rule question. If we want to have a nonpartisan election, we should be able to have a nonpartisan election.
I agree with you.
They don't like home rule, though, do they?
They don't.
They don't seem to.
Mm-mm.
They like big, consolidated Tallahassee government.
So, all right. County, is that all for the county attorney?
Yes, sir.
That was
County administrator?
No, it's not.
Yes, as you know, the good news is our county, our tourism is working, and we're having boats come in on a regular basis. We're also having some issues. This weekend, we had issues at Rock Landing, not necessarily from the boat trailer parking, but from the success of the Sane Yard restaurant there where Mad Anthony's used to be. All the customers are now parking during the day, parking in the parking lot where the boat trailers are parking is to be done. So we're going to be working with the owner of Rock Landing Marina to help him get some other parking areas, because it's now we had our customers, our boat ramp customers, they ended up a lot of them had to park on 98 and all up and down that area. So because there were so many cars within our own parking lot. So you may hear something about that, but we're going to be addressing that with the Rock Landing owner.
The reposing issue.
Well, yeah, it's just right and wrong. So boat ramp, Masha Sands should be open on Friday. I'm going to do the final inspection tomorrow.
Nice.
That'll be just the boat ramp. The other side won't quite be ready, but that doesn't matter. We'll be in time for snapper season.
Okay.
Also, staff is we're working on a public safety program that we'll be bringing to you guys, and it'll be a multi-tiered program to where, as our county has grown and it's going to continue to grow, we need to come together as a community and have a good public safety program that's going to involve the sheriff's office, fire rescue, and primarily those two, and segmenting where do we need offices and stations in the county. It's time for us to do that. It should have already been set. The stations that we have currently are just VFDs. They're not in the best locations to cover from a standpoint of ISO, so that all of our citizens are able to benefit from being in a coverage area. So we're looking at that component. It's also the sheriff's department. As we continue to grow in our county, the sheriff's office needs presence in other parts of the county versus just here in Crawfordville, even though, yes, there are in other places, but we need to have satellite offices, and we're working with the sheriffs on that. So we'll be bringing a program that will lay out, we already have a layout of a program, but we're going to be bringing it to you, to something you don't have to decide soon, but it's something that we're going to put on and have a community discussions and go around the county and talk about it, because as you know, we get ready to abandon some VFDs and move to different spots. That's going to cause some controversy, but I think the rationale behind what we want to do makes sense from a standpoint of protecting the public and getting everybody covered. So you'll have that coming to you, and but like I say, we want to have a community program, talk to the communities about it and see what their needs are, but unroll something so that we can go ahead and purchase land if needed, and also put in place ways to get to this plan so that it'll be funding and some other things that'll come along with that, but give a program so that in the future the county has a master plan to work from, so that we can not only have a plan, but also we can go after grants if we have that master plan. Just like our infrastructure plan, we've been able to chase grants because of that master plan, and that's what we'll have, is this master plan, and it'll help show the legislature and all the granting agencies what we're trying to do in our that we are thinking about this. And you know, if you look at the success of I'll never forget the commissioner told when I first brought the master plan up for the infrastructure plan, said, well, you know, $9,000, we can't afford that. We can't afford that, and I think we're bumping now about $50 million that we've got off of that $9,000. He said, oh my God, you can't spend $9,000, but we're bumping probably a little over $50 million now. So we're going to be bringing that to you, as well as a parks parks plan to where we're going to amend the parks ordinance and bring to you guys. Basically, for the boat ramps, we're having issues with folks not paying.
Yeah.
And that's about a third of our what the survey we've got now. They're not paying. Our maintenance of these ramps are continuing to skyrocket. We've got many things we own. We have to take care of all the signage in the waterway, all the beacon markers, other than the stuff in the St. Marks River and right there at Rock Landing. And if people were paying, it wouldn't be a problem. But we've got to take a hard look at that. A hard look at improvements that are needed there, and the only way we can fix those improvements is by the users that use the facility.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be bringing that to you as well.
Enforcement.
We got things to do, but it's too bad because you want folks to pay for it and the users to pay for it. It's, I got my kid in soccer and I have to, I have to pay for him to go play soccer. So why shouldn't, if you use the boat ramps, why shouldn't you pay for the boat? I'm not entitled to anything.
Refuge don't cut you no slack.
And it shouldn't. And to me, it just doesn't even make sense not to pay. But that's.
And back to the plan thing, one thing I have learned, I think I told you guys, government cannot do anything unless it's in a plan.
Yeah. So we're developing all that, and it'll come back with a capital spending plan. We've already made major improvements at a lot of our ramps. I think everybody's recognized that, but we're getting busier. We need more room for parking all over the place.
Everywhere.
Guess what? That takes money.
Yeah.
So we have to.
So you are working on
yes.
bringing us some plans on how to provide.
How to provide it, but we got to have money. That's it.
Can we have a little phone booth like in Carabel for the sheriff's station down by my house?
I suggested
I
that,
can work on that?
but they kind of didn't like that.
They didn't?
No.
Okay.
That's where I got my first
I'll
ticket.
join the reserve. In Carabel? At the
Right
fire
there.
station?
Yeah, right. He was sitting right there by that fire station. I was 16 years
He write you up in
that phone booth. I was 16
He write you
years
up in the
old.
phone booth?
He said, pull over. Mom?
I sure did.
There wasn't any cell phones then. He had to go to the phone
That's
booth
what I
to
meant.
call
You
his
had to dig
mama.
out a
That's right.
dime.
Oh, yeah. County Administrator, our second citizens to be heard. Discussion items?
I think we've done that.
Yeah. You spoke about the boat ramps, and I'd just like to kind of echo that, especially with the heat. There's a lot of people that's seeking the water, not just with boats, but also swimmers. And so far, I think it's been very good. We passed some rules that allow people to swim in our boat ramps. I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department. I've seen them out there, doing courtesy enforcements and working with people. And so far, I live by the upper bridge, so that's my main focus where I'm seeing most of this. But I would just like to encourage the public, please, for your own sake, for all of our sake, treat each other like neighbors. If there's somebody's boating in there, give them some room, help them back out, get the children out of the way, because when we don't do things the right way, somebody asks government to step in. And I'm for little government and big freedom, but we've got to make sure that we're treating each other properly in order to be able to maintain that. So go that extra mile to clean up after yourself, encourage people to do the right thing, and I think we all continue to enjoy and benefit from the resources we have here. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor?
I did 3 more performance-based retrofits just today. 2 of them were on lots over 5 acres, by the way. So I think people, once they realize that they can get their drain field replaced for free, people are going to start taking a big advantage of it. So it's taking a lot of tanks offline.
Are they opting for the nitrogen reducing or the performance?
Well, performance-based. That's the only way.
But not the new sawdust nitrogen reducing thing.
As far as I know,
Yeah.
nobody's figured that out. Practical
They
way
really
to do
haven't
that.
figured that out yet.
Okay.
But there are a bunch of people, like I said, 2 of the lots are over 5 acres. And they were mobile homes. I'm sure they were doing it because they said, now's a chance to get a free drain field. Go ahead and do it. And if I was them, I'd do it too. Motion to adjourn.
Quincy, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. Randy's
But
gonna...
I just wanted to clarify that we have plans going forward to fix our boat ramps and fix the parking issues that are all over the county at this point.
Yeah, it's money for people to use.
We're gonna fix it to we're gathering data right now on a normal weekend in the summer, not, we can't plan to Memorial Day and all that stuff.
Yes.
So we're collecting that data, and then that's when we're gonna come back with a plan.
Have you thought about adding more boat ramps along the river to pull some traffic over there?
Yes. And one of those will be coming to you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
Machines where you pull in and it takes you up.
Years ago,